think I can immediately start to introduce our today's speaker, Ulrike Wuttke. Ulrike Wuttke is a professor for library science, strategies, service development, and scholarly communication at the Department of Information Sciences at the University of Applied Sciences in Potsdam, Germany, since 2023. Before that, she had various positions at the Academy of Sciences and Humanities and the State and University Library in Göttingen. And she holds a PhD degree from the University of Ghent. That's in Belgium, so that's just a film reminiscence.
Ghent.
Ghent. That's the H in Ghent, right?
It's the Sachte in Ghent.
Because it's Belgium, or?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Her teaching and research interests include digital research infrastructures, research data management, scholarly communication, and open science. She contributes to various national networks and communities, so on a national and international level in these areas, and she's a member of the board of DHD, so that's the German Association for Digital Humanities, for digital humanities in the German-speaking countries, or areas, rather. Member of the Executive Committee of the EADH, so the European Association for Digital Humanities, and she's a member of the steering board of the NFDE for Culture, or NFDI for Culture. I think the Germans tend to say NFDE for Culture, so that's a mix. Anyway, so Ulrike is a visiting scholar for a couple of months here at our center, and we are very happy about this. And she's already engaging with lots of colleagues here to explore a little bit our microcosmos of a DH center in Venice, in Italy, as an example that will be then somehow part or represented also in her research project and publication, what she's now going to talk about. And yeah, the title is DH Globally. DH Locally. Thank you, Ulrike. The floor is yours. And yeah, I look forward to what you are doing now with us here.
Okay, yes, thank you very much, Franz, for this kind introduction, and also for having me. And yes, I discussed in advance, of course, which accent should I choose, or which dialect, but already here it starts, you always feel a bit, or you could feel a bit embarrassed in an international context if you speak in a language that is not your own, but to make yourself understandable, of course, this is what we do. And I'm very happy here at the VDPH, and also to Franz Fischer, that he invited me to come as a visiting scholar, not only during this term, and it's really a very stimulating intellectual atmosphere here, but also a very good place to work on my current publication project, of which you will be even part of, and more about this you will also be hearing later, but also for the opportunity here to discuss this to a wider audience. Preparing for this little talk, which was announced to me as being rather informal, was very helpful for me also to think again through some of the aspects I'm currently dealing with, and also I am thinking about. So a lot of this is also still work in progress. Yeah, so thank you once again for the invitation and the chance to present my work here in the context of this seminar series. And yeah, thank you also for coming online and coming here. And now I will start with a few words about my background, some biographical notes about me, not just to tell you about my CV, but I think it will be helpful to understand my project and my projects and the research activities where they are coming from, because maybe also for the students who are listening, I'm maybe not the very prototypical digital humanist you might have in mind. So let me explain a bit. I studied at Free University at Berlin, also at the University of Amsterdam, and I studied Dutch and English philology. That is, or rather was, after Bologna, things changed a bit, literature and linguistics. And I had an emphasis on medieval literature and added later to this a second master at Free University in editorial science. I did my PhD research at Ghent University, or Ghent University, not to be confused with Genf in Switzerland, but in Belgium, this tiny country very close to Amsterdam. And I did there an interdisciplinary research project on medieval Dutch eschatology that crossed the lines between literary studies, history, and history of religion. I was honored then that my dissertation even won a prize for Flemish history of religion at the then or still Royal Flemish Academy of Sciences and Arts of Belgium, which was rather exceptional, especially as I had written my PhD in Belgium, but in German. It caused a bit of a scandal. After my PhD, I moved into digital humanities with a strong focus on research data management first, and then steadily but strongly became interested in all kinds of open science, scholarly communication, and research infrastructures, again on the crossroads, this time between digital humanities and information science, even adding to my CV a master at Technical University at Cologne and Library in Information Science. And I'm now teaching this very same subject at the University of Applied Sciences at Potsdam, at the Department of Information Science, as Franz Fischer already mentioned, and I'm currently also there, the chair of the bachelor degree in library science. So with this a bit more background, you might also understand that my upcoming publications, for which I'm ringing a bell, of course, show my rather broad, but in another sense also very specific interdisciplinary spectrum. So you see here, I'm writing about scientific communication and community building in the digital humanities, but also about research data management. So let's talk about some of the other professional projects and activities that have brought me here and that are very closely related also to the talk. The topic of the talk, the age globally, the age locally. I will start with a project that is called Open Methods. This is a meta blog. It's sponsored by Daria EU, and it reflects my interest both in digital humanities, open science, and innovation in scholarly communication. I'm also member of the editorial board of a journal, the journal closely connected to the German Digital Humanities Association. Again, you see here the link between digital humanities, open science, open access, and innovations in scholarly communication. Franz also already mentioned the NFDE or NFDI for culture. I don't know how much you know about infrastructures for research data management, but in Germany, something we at least think is very good and exceptional happened. We have now a national initiative building research data management infrastructure. And here, being on the steering committee, I'm very honored to contribute to shaping this infrastructure with a focus on the humanities and also forwarding it towards the European Open Science Cloud. Then we move into the scholarly association corner with the DHD-Verband. So that's the Association for Digital Humanities in the German-speaking areas. And what is very good about being involved in such an association is this is really community service towards the digital humanities community. So the association tries to support with various activities, like you see here, community building or research, the annual conference. As a regional digital humanities association, the research and the connection between the researchers. There's also funding opportunities and stipends, and even providing social media, open source social media, like a Mastodon instance. So I already mentioned that the DHD is a regional the Humanities Association for the German-speaking areas, so not only for Germany, but in a broader sense. Do you know what is the Italian Regional Digital Humanities Association?
Of course.
You don't know. At least one person knows.
The students know as
The
well.
students know, of course. Stefan also knows.
Introduction.
Okay, they are a bit shy. They look knowingly, but also a bit shy. So maybe you can say it. I will break my tongue.
IUCD, you mean?
Yeah.
IUCD.
IUCD?
IUCD, yeah. That's the acronym.
Associazione
Associazione per l'Informatica Umanistica e Cultura Digitale.
Sì. So you probably do more or less the same as the DHD-Verband, as we would say in German, but as a regional association. You do that for Italy or Italian-speaking areas. Maybe you call it the same. So if we move now from the regional one, we can broaden the scope, and I'm also representing the DHD-Verband in the European Association for Digital Humanities, and I don't have the time today to go into much detail about the landscape of all these kinds of scholarly and related associations around the globe that are dedicated to digital humanities. It might be also a bit boring to try to entangle this whole network, but it is worth noting, especially to understand the context of this current publication project in which I'm involved from global to local, that the digital humanities under various guises or names, as the term itself is rather new, you might notice already that it was established only widely in 2000 or beginning from 2004. And it has brought forth a lot of as well local as global interest groups under different names. And in 2005, note 1 year after the broad establishment of digital humanities as a name, we find as a milestone in this timeline the founding of the ADHO, so the Alliance of Digital Humanities Organization. And this is a kind of global umbrella organization. It has a global, a huge annual conference, and ADHO, through this organizing of the global conference, it gives ADHO quite a prominence, and it's also very significantly influences digital humanities on a global scale. A point of critique being here more or less that ADHO, through this dominance, also kind of gives a bit less prevalence to digital humanities scholarship that exists outside of the purview of ADHO. This is a quote from Risa. I will put the notes, or I have a bibliography at the end. So the whole point is that we can see there are global organizations, there are local organizations, and how they relate to each other. So the development and organizational structures really make it worthwhile looking closer at differences or also aims of discipline-like organization versus geographical organization, including also language interests, and that we will do in the next section. While talking about national and international digital humanities organizations, I am involved in, you probably already have noticed, aspects of localization and globalization of these institutions and networks in the digital humanities. These aspects also play a role when we talk about the history of digital humanities. What does come to your mind when I would ask you about the origins of the digital humanities? Busa. I hear several people saying something about Busa and the others nodding. Yes. I would have thought so, that a prominent narrative in the history of the digital humanities is undeniable Roberto Busa and his index to Mysticus, and especially being here in Italy. This story begins in 1946 or 1949. I have found several dates, and it includes a lot of IBM punch cards and female labor, that is co-workers, punching all these cards. It's very difficult to imagine now, but it must have been an awful lot of work. Roberto Busa, being an Italian, I would be more than surprised if he wasn't a popular figure in the narrative of Italian digital humanities or umanistica digitale. However, Roberto Busa became on a global scale the epitome of the origins of digital humanities. And I have at least some idea that he was very, very good at public relations. The problem with his ubiquitous fame is that it leads to a widespread belief that early digital humanities work, and I quote here Pressner, concentrated perhaps somewhat narrowly on text analysis, such as classification systems, markup, text encoding, and scholarly editing. The latter seems to have had quite some far-reaching effects on the historiography as well on the global narrative of digital humanities in general. Because when it comes to the history of digital humanities, and I quote here Sula and Hill, despite the variety and breadth of definitions of the age, narratives of its history have been surprisingly homogeneous. Short and anecdotal history of the field often ground the age and middle 20th century humanities computing. And despite the local Italian, put it in quotation marks, hero, Roberto Busa, these histories tend not only to be text-centric, but also favoring certain disciplines, especially philology. And they are also written from an Anglophone perspective, even though pretending to be global in outlook. Maybe most unabashed in the famous article by Matthew Kirschenbaum, What is Digital Humanities and What's It's Doing in English Departments. Studies that delve deeper into the history of the field, however, point out that the historical course that led to digital humanities in all its varieties needs to include accounts of computational approaches in other disciplines involving other media types and other languages than English, and regions beside the global north, which is, as you probably know, North America, traditionally Western Europe. And examples are early work in quantitative history. There was something like Cliometrics. I mean, of course, also long before my time or even our times. There were sound studies, but also under-resourced languages, especially small languages. To better chart the historical development in a field helps to understand its current ecology and may inform its future development. So, of course, there is a question, why look at the history of the digital humanities? Why study this? And another reason to delve deeper into the history of the field is to uncover also connections to other fields, I think, which are sometimes obvious and sometimes maybe not so. You probably know also other disciplines like social sciences, applied sciences, computer sciences, information sciences. There is an ongoing narrative of the new and also revolutionary. Julian Nyhan wrote quite a lot about this already, that obscures these connections to the other fields and also the understanding of the methods and their historical development. So there is a lot of, this is very new, this is groundbreaking, and something probably also has to do with a kind of narrative that is required when you apply for funding, but there seems to be something even more deeper here going on in this narrative. McCarthy in 2014 called on digital humanities in his Busa Award lecture. You see, there is even a Busa Award. To use its 64 years of fumbling to gain leverage for a great inductive leap to a vantage point from which its disciplinary shape and trajectory can be seen. The key to its future and in some measures the future of all the related humanities is its history. This is also very interesting that it sometimes really seems to be forgotten that the field already has 64 years of history, while it seems to be very, very new and groundbreaking in the other sense. And he said that despite the digital humanities being in a state of permanent revolution, it is necessary to study and build knowledge about its past. If not, we not only fail to understand its current state, but because being unaware of its root, we are also condemned to repeat the revolutionary trope ad infinitum. This is again from Nyhan, and she also argues for a plurality of histories to contain the heterogeneity of the field. You see, there is a very homogeneous narrative on the one hand, and there is an argument to study the field in its heterogeneity, which is actually a very difficult word to pronounce properly. DH globally, DH locally. The ecology of the digital humanities as a research field and its historical developments, however, not only characterized by disciplinary aspects, so disciplinary boundaries and transgressions, research strategies or media types, but also, as already mentioned, by localization or location. And we see here that localized strategies of individual practitioners play also a role while defining research areas and especially because they are shaped by institutional frameworks, by funding initiatives, and also a lot of cultural attitudes towards academia, including also education. And you can argue that the field of digital humanities is made up of these localized practices of its practitioners. They all use digital technologies, but the local context constitutes also a framework, important framework in this ecology of digital humanities. To give one example, Sula and Hill, 2019, analyzed the journal Computers and Humanities, Computers and the Humanities, and Literary and Linguistic Computing. So these are two key journals in the field that are notable for their connections to prominent organizations. So the Association for Computers and the Humanities and the Association for Literary and Linguistic Computing, of which the later was renamed in 2015, the later journal, into Digital Scholarship in the Humanities, also to rebrand itself to a wider audience. And this journal also became the official journal of the ATO, so this Association of Digital Humanities Organizations, on a global scale, while actually being managed by the EIDH, but this is a very different story. Some interesting findings of this research. Together, the authors of the articles that were researched were represented nearly 50 different countries based on the authors' institutional affiliations. However, the vast majority of these authors is from American and British institutions, respectively followed by Canada, around 2/3. There were some international author collective, and in those author collectives, the predominant declined. So what we see here is maybe something pointing to at least those journals that are international branded, nevertheless being dominated from Anglo-American digital humanities. But this is just one example. Having said all this, there are several reasons to study digital humanities via its disciplinary roots, and it's also very important to retrieve not only published sources, but also unpublished sources. And of course, it is also important to study digital humanities also from several other aspects, and one of those perspectives could be also looking beyond Anglo-American perspectives or even European contexts, and to center also on other regional and national approaches to find out what those areas were interested in, how developments went there. The DH can have very different flavors. There's a very interesting article I already mentioned from Arisam about this, and those accounts will reveal different stories and also help to develop a more inclusive picture of the present field. To acknowledge geopolitical dimensions of digital humanities, so the influence of localization will help us, or can at least contribute to understanding challenges, dynamics of recognition and misrecognition, and also opportunities on a a global scale, and we also need theoretization of the navigation of those differences and local practices and global perceptions. To conclude this section, Grissom wrote then, while DH is global, its practices are local. And it's, I think, interesting and challenging at the same time to look at those geopolitical dimensions and the future of the digital humanities and see what one can contribute to this discussion and how this discussion can contribute to build a really truly global DH community. So if we start with the history of science and practical implication before tackling those very huge geopolitical questions, first we need to solve questions like, what is the role of local context? What is the role of languages? What is the role of national and international networks or of associations? What is the role of funding and of resources, of centers and infrastructures, or even the commercialization of scientific communication? Okay. After this maybe more theoretical part, and I hope I still have you following me, I will now narrow down to our concrete project from global to local, which seeks to focus on the German aspect. And the main idea behind our publication project, and I say our because I am not, of course, doing this alone, but I'm doing this with very nice colleagues and excellent scholars. And I think some of them are also present online here today with me. And one of the aspects or aims of this our publication project was to carve out implications between global and local DH, while acknowledging that our viewpoint is the German-speaking areas. So one question could be, are there any specific German flavors or even continental ones? When you look into the literature, what I found so far is very anecdotal, and I'm very curious for the contributions that are at the moment flowing into our mailboxes. The Prof paper has cost or got attention from a quite very diverse group of authors. What they will be revealing to us. Like one anecdote I read was, for example, about from the researcher Ott, who he developed two-step and which became rather prominent also in the German-speaking areas for doing editorial science. Maybe you can look it up at some point. And he told in a oral history interview then, maybe one of the reasons why it didn't got much prominence further was that the documentation was only in German, so no one else could really use it, and they didn't have the money to do it in English as well. But of course, this is, just one tiny anecdote, and I'm very curious how it will also what our publications will unshelve. Another interesting tiny aspect is, for example, just when you look how you name the thing. So we talked about digital humanities and it being established as a term not so long ago. But if you look into to continental Europe, you also find quite often a term like e-humanities, which is not so prominently found, for example, in the Anglophone areas. So our project is a part of a current effort to dive deeper into understanding the history of digital humanities as well as into the future, and taking into account that knowing only where we are coming from, we can start talking informed about the future. So we always need to focus on the rationale that led scholars to organize themselves, and besides, their very small research group or institutions. So maybe so much about the rationale. I'm the lead editorial lead, and we have 3 parts and also a volume editors. So we have Melanie Seidman, Christopher Nun, Anne Bayou, Christian Schröter, and Christian Wachter involved in this project as editors as well. Our publishing partner is Melusina Press. This is a university press from the Faculty of Humanities, Education and Social Sciences of the University of Luxembourg. It's a diamond open access publication venue, and the publication will be hybrid in the way it is print. It can be printed, but it is like online, and it's online as well. The publication will consist of 3 parts that will be called investigations, in their own words, and artefact biographies. These are the English translations, and the first the investigations will be like classical thematic essays. These are longer publications. Then, in their own words, will be audio essays, more in interview dialogue style. And the third part are the artifact biographies. They are a bit shorter than the investigation, the long essays, and there will be biographies of objects in a very specific format. We want to open up the format and also the timelines with this publication. So that's why we chose different approaches, also in the publication strategy, and in the way we invited authors to contribute to this publication. We had an open call for a paper as well, and we will publish here also in open access to be able to share the insights widely and build. And meanwhile, working with Melusina Press, we are also looking into building new publication workflows. Maybe if you are more interested in this part, we can take it up later as well. As we have not published yet, and we are still a while, there's still some time to going, I restricted myself here from showing all the contributions to also lend a bit of privacy to the planned contributions, but some thing I wanted to present here as well, where we are now. So we have 9 articles coming up in the investigations category. Most of them are actually single authored, but we also have multiple authors. And one of the publication actually will be written by 10 authors as a collective, which is in itself rather exciting, and they managed to do so. In their own words, in den eigenen Worten, is planned to be 5 audio essays, and in the artifact biography, we have 9 planned, and again here single-authored 6, and 3 will be multi-authored. The authors are mainly from Germany, but we also have some based in France and one at and at Basel, and the topic are very wide, ranging from sound studies to digital literacy to small languages research areas to linked open data to early humanities computing. So it's a broad spectrum. What I found very interesting as well is that we encouraged to contribute also in English, but the articles, but all authors actually at the moment they chose for the publishing in German. Now I want to focus on the category which I am focusing on, also with together with Anne Maillot, in their own words, the audio essays, and talk a bit more about concept and publication strategy, and also an episode I'm planning here with as a stage center, the Venice Centre for Digital and Public Humanities. So here we have 4 authored thematic features planned, and also 1 participative community feature, which is called 5 questions, 1 answer, and there was also a call for contributions for this, but I'm also actually recording this section now also live, as I found out that people were kind of interested to contribute, but our call for contributions seemed in the end a bit, the barrier seemed a bit too high to send in their own audio contributions. But if you hold a microphone in front of people, they are quite often happy to say something enlightening. So there was no open call for contributions here. The challenge to send in a ready audio essay seemed to us a bit too it seemed to us a bit too difficult, and we were also thinking then to experiment ourselves with this category, and how you can collect those voices from the community. So in their own words, these audio essays, as I said, they are authored thematically chosen, the topic areas by the editors, so by me and Anne Maillot, and we want to try to make digital humanities topics to resonate also atmospherically, and to take the listeners on a journey of thought, to engage with those topics. So also in a contrast to what we have with the 2 written categories in our planned publication. And here you see the planned audio essays. So 1 is on sound studies, 1 is on artificial intelligence, 1 is at digital history, and 1 is on digital and public humanities, which would be centered here, and I discussed already quite some ideas also with Franz Fischer, how we can tackle this, because there's a lot of interesting things to hear about this. The publication strategy for these audio essays will be that we will be publishing the audio essays in full length. So that will be like, I don't know, 45, 50 minutes maybe, to the media repository of the University of Luxembourg. So also where Melusina Press is based, and they will get PIDs, and then in the print publication or the PDF publication, they will have like a double page spread representation. So they are not overlooked, of course, but you will find then in this short print presentation, you will find like a link, a DOI to listen to the audio essay. And there will also be transcripts, and on this short representation will also include the typical show notes that you also know from podcast. And if we manage, and that is also that's the only point that will also depend a bit on the resources, is if we also will publish the audio essays as a podcast feed. There will be a podcast format, but if we can really publish them as a feed, we have to find out. Yeah, so the Venice Centre episode will be, of course, featuring digital and public humanities. What is it? What are the challenges, what about the methods, and also what role do local and global context and influences play. And we look through it also through the lens of using examples of research here at the VDPH. And I'm also very curious and also to hear especially there's just a special focus also between being in global networks, being in local networks, and also, for example, Franz Fischer here as being a bit of an intermediary between several spheres as well. Yeah, so I wrote here already contributions and suggestions. Welcome. I got already some suggestions, and I will also ask people here at the center. I have a long list of names, so don't be shocked. I come to you and say, okay, I want to conduct an interview with you. I will skip the 5 question and 1 answer to come to some meta reflections on audio essays and podcasting and public humanities and maybe even oral history. I don't know if you ever thought deeply already about podcasting as a publication strategy. So this is something that is not really live. It is asynchronous. It's like not the radio. If you look back where this word podcasting comes from, it's not quite sure, but it was invented around 2005, 2004, maybe as a mix of iPod and broadcasting. So on the one hand, I think podcasting can be considered as a form of science communication, but I think it also relates to public humanities and also to oral history, and how exactly is actually still a question I'm working on, and how to define, and I would really love to hear your thoughts on it. My preliminary thoughts are that there are a lot of approaches to history of the history of the digital humanities, and at the moment they are dominated by written approaches. And so we have something like the oral history-led research, or the first comprehensive oral history-led research on the history of computing in the humanities is quite recent, is Niernan et al. And they also discuss how oral history approaches might unearth aspects of the story of digital humanities that one will not find in literature. So that is quite interesting. So if you study the discipline in a traditional way, right, really based on primary documents and documentation, is that one of the problems is that a lot of this documentation is actually not present or cannot be retrieved anymore. And that's one of the reasons why they carried out oral history interviews, actually creating new sources to study the history of the field. And they also say it makes it even more richer, and it also represents more groups, and it also makes it more inclusive. Do I have 5 more minutes or?
Five. Yeah. So
okay, I will come to the end. So we also have time for discussion. The publication or the audio essays we are planning will be more like interviews, not in a methodically stringent style, like a very social science interviewing. It might be a bit more like in journalism. It's less witnessing testimony, and there are several aspects to be included here. If you want to have a closer look at the more stringent approach, you can have a look at the publication by Nyhan. But we chose a bit more, I think, a bit more science communication approach to this. So each interview will be very individual, and then the interviews will be kind of collaged by the editors into audio essays. To round up my talk, I hope I have given some impression on why studying global and local history of digital humanities, and anyway, looking at aspects of digital humanities from local but also global perspective can be enriching. And I also hope that I managed to give you an overview of our publication project and the role the audio essays play in it, and especially also what could be the contribution of the part of the project I am working on here at the center. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm very looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Ulrike. So it's a very wide field, and seems like we have more questions to the audience than, so I don't know. There will be questions also from here. So, but you raised a lot of definitory questions and content-related question of identity. So everything we discussed also our beautiful introduction to Digital and Public Humanities. So yeah. So the floor is open for comments, questions. Those from participating online, you can post your question in the chat or just raise your hand, or there are not too many, so you can also just unmute yourself, and then we try to have the discussion. So, do you want to start with a question?
You raised your hand. No, but there is a hand.
Yeah, please.
Thank you very much for your
Might be useful if you could come a bit closer so everyone can listen. That should be fine.
Okay, and thank you very much for your presentation. My question is about oral essays, how they are assessed and peer reviewed. If it's, I don't know if it's logical or a stupid question, I don't know, but yeah, I was wondering if there is a script and to submit, or if there will be a new, I don't know, way of peer reviewing and this kind of essays, because I guess also oral essays has to have a rhythm and I don't know, a certain tone and clarity. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yes, thank you very much for this interesting question. So the question is about the audio essays and how they are assessed and peer reviewed. So we will have editorial peer review on the audio essays, as you have also seen. Sorry. We are quite a huge group, so we have discussed this quite intensely, and of course, peer review being part also of the quality control or quality assurance in a publication process. Melusina Press says as minimum standard, what they encourage is editorial peer review. So the editors assess the contributions. And you can go even further with a peer review, a blind peer review, open peer review, whatever. And so we decided to have editorial peer review here with the other editors involved besides me and Andrejo, because we will be being assessed. Will give us advice on the audio essays as audio, so not in a written transcription, but as audio. And also, we will also include a feedback loop with the people who contributed to the essays. So all of them will be given the chance to listen to the whole essay and also what we did with their contribution. So that will be the two mechanisms that will be being involved into the assessment.
It's really, really fascinating. Yeah.
And answer your question?
Sure.
Yeah, I also very much like the idea to have this still new concept of a multimodal edition or publication. And I think Luxembourg is really doing a very strong effort in that direction. So I also saw some other call for contributions from Luxembourg that were very interesting. Yeah, peer review is, especially in Italy, a great issue because this would never count then as a research contribution, which is terrible. But these are the rules in a very traditional system like the Italian system. But yeah, it would maybe be under the cover of third mission, terza missione, or different ways of outreaching, connecting to communities and the wider public. So, which is very well regarded, but doesn't give you any credits as a scholar. So, if you follow academic career, so there's always a challenge for scholars in the Italian and also in other national contexts. So that's one point that is where your concept fits globally national. So to have this two poles. But I was wondering, and maybe probably have an idea of this as well. So what I see more than national differences, except for the academic system, but looking at the digital humanities research is the disciplinary background. So we have digital classicists, digital medievalists, which create communities, which I find from my research or my definition and view of the field more characteristic than national identity. Well, I don't know. So is there an idea how you balance these factors, which are as well characteristics of the field, the concept of the publication or approach?
I think that will be one of the, I hope it will be one of the outcomes to also gain more insight into this, because I think the disciplinary aspects have been already acknowledged, but which role the local aspects play, if they play any, I mean, it's an open question, is still to be defined. And maybe it will be also something in between, but I mean, just when we look at histories of digital humanities or introductions of digital humanities, there is always a language does play a role, and even if it's only networks. So we just had a discussion actually today, and also the two of us, I can be transparent about this. So you have like a German introduction into digital humanities in German. All the authors, most of the authors are from the German-speaking areas. So you get this kind of network contributing to it. It's a language thing. If you have a English, like what was the other ones, like the Oxford companion to digital humanities, you will suddenly have a lot of Americans and UK people and some Canadians, but not many Italians or many Germans. So then it's a very Anglophone perspective. Then we have this Italian introduction to digital humanities, and most of the authors, of course, are Italians. So there is a specific flavor. If it does it play a huge role, we don't know yet, and we will maybe have a small puzzle piece contributing to it once we have our publication. So, because that's one of the missions, the authors are breaking their minds and what they are writing about.
No, I have to say I totally agree. So this approach is more interesting than the traditional way of looking at the field is from the disciplines. So absolutely right. So so comparing handbooks, but even Wikipedia articles about digital humanities. So if you compare Italian Wikipedia article and the English article, you immediately see where the differences are. So from the national perspective, so Italian strictly ordered by disciplines, so, and the English one is so defining fields of applications and methodologies. So it's very different from the Italian structure of the Wikipedia entry for digital humanities. So just as another example.
It's also
I tend to raise my hand, but I don't.
You still raise your hand. A lot of questions.
Yeah.
I mean, like even what you said about, for example, peer review in Italy being very important. I mean, I just have been at Paris and talked to Mareike König, who is a very prominent figure also in the field, or especially in the field of scholarly communication and the blogging. She is like founded one of the huge European-wide blogging infrastructures, or especially German blogging infrastructures, because she said like the French scholars, they were so much into blogging, and it it was very important already, when in Germany it was a bit like looked strangely at, and one of the factors that played a role was like there was no infrastructure for trustable infrastructure for blogging present, so it had really a bad name, and it was also not very persistent, and founding hypothesis then helped a lot and helped raise the profile of blogging. It's still not fully accepted in many ways as a scholarly contribution. So some say yes, if it involves, and it can be involved. We have examples of this peer review mechanisms. So there again, having a local infrastructure that contributes to the discipline, then also can give a special flavor. You raised your hand again.
I do nothing. Yeah, further questions from.
Or also additions. I mean,
chat. If there are no further comments, questions, I think we already reached time close to the end of this seminar. Yeah, please, if you can come here, last question or second last.
Just my question is just my curiosity about the methods that you use for preservation for long time for data and content, that because it's a special content as a multi media or audio and so same as that. Do you have any special methods for preservation of data in this project?
For the publication or for as
for the
a
publication.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have some idea where this question comes from, and it's of course very strong also in our minds. Franz Fischer has raised his hand again. I don't know if you want to add something on this topic. So the question is about preservation methods for the data, for the publication. After the publications, of course, we rely on Melusina Press as our publishing partner for this. It's the institutionalized university press. So they will have the PDFs and everything, of course, online. And the audio essays will go into the multimedia repository of the University of Luxembourg to be preserved. So we, of course, trust into this. It's also open access, which means it can be also be included into several other preservation activities. If you think of clocks or like everything, there is no problem with this. I guess it will also go into the National Library of Luxembourg, probably. Yes, but it's still a very good question, because it depends on a sustainable publication partner. Check the small letters in the contract again, what they promise for.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
will meet again in 1 week and 1 day, so it's a Thursday exceptionally, and we will have Scott Redberg from University of Bergen as a guest here in presence, so but you can attend also online. And Scott will talk about cyber authorship, writing with AI, so that's a nice finish of the year seminar, so everyone very welcome. Thank you everyone for your participating in the discussion and for being here and connected from elsewhere. And have a nice evening. And we are having an aperitivo now, I suppose. So anyone who wants to join us is very welcome.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.